Hi everyone. It's been a weird week, hasn't it? One that none of us could have ever predicted. While none of us know where this thing is headed, I made this video to offer you some insight into how the coronavirus may impact Canadian real estate. First, this is absolutely an economic shock, one that the Bank of Canada and the rest of us are not prepared for. Canadian households are the most indebted in the G7. We chose not to take the medicine in 2008, and so household balance sheets remain bloated today. The household debt servicing ratio sits at a record high despite low interest rates, and our household savings are near 60-year lows. In other words, there's not a whole lot of cash put aside for a rainy day. Households are not well positioned for an economic shock. This shock will unfortunately result in a hit to incomes and job layoffs. Consequently, debt servicing becomes increasingly difficult. This is not something that can be fixed by lowering interest rates. We have a global pandemic where policymakers are encouraging people to disengage from economic activity, avoid restaurants, organized events, and travel, the very things that make society function and that drive consumer spending, which accounts for over 65% of GDP. One man or woman's spending is another's income. And that leaves us with some questions to think about. How are Canadians going to service over $1.56 billion in mortgage debt? Credit lines, credit cards, all these things. What about tenants that can't pay their rent? Perhaps we should look at how other countries are coping. In Hong Kong, the government will cut a check for $10,000 to every resident. In Italy, the government's working with banks to get a moratorium on mortgage payments. In the city of San Jose, they've adopted a moratorium on evictions for residents who can't pay rent because of lost income resulting from the coronavirus. These all seem entirely plausible in Canada. You can debate the moral hazard around it and whether it's right or wrong thing to do. However, we might not have a choice. In terms of the overall market, we might see a halt in activity, not just a slowdown in sales, but in new listings as well. You won't see this reflected in the data for several months though, because mostly because of the lag time of data processing. Further, it seems logical that prices would drop, or could drop anyway. And if they do, that won't be reflected in the official price metrics for many months. This is due to the emotional nature of real estate. Nobody cuts their price overnight. Unlike stocks, there's no mark to a market on a daily basis. I'm thinking a lot about new construction projects too, which are capital intensive and often funded using significant amounts of leverage. Every month, sales are delayed, carrying costs add up, putting profit margins to pressure. Closing risks are also no doubt something to consider should pre-sale buyers have a change in their employment status upon completion. We're expected to see a record low number of completions this year, with the number of units under construction at all-time highs. Lastly, I think a lot about the private credit market. We know that private lending has been growing at a rapid pace these past few years. It's estimated about 10% of new loans issued are private, and this increases the renewal risks for buyers who again might have a change in employment status as the loan comes due. Most of these loans are one-year terms. So I wouldn't be surprised to see the mortgage investment corporations also halt redemptions on their investors in order to stem the liquidity issues from investors wanting to pull their money. Many of these mortgage investment corporations borrow on a line of credit from a bigger bank. Will these loans be recalled? In the best case scenario, we should at least expect an increase in private mortgage rates in order to account for the increased market risks. Nobody knows how this will play out. I've heard from others in the industry that they expect real estate to act as a flight to safety, and thus it won't be impacted. I hope so. But regardless, I will keep you all updated on the situation as it develops. We all know how important real estate is to the Canadian economy, irrespective of your views of the current housing market. Now more than ever, we will need to navigate these waters carefully. And finally, as I said in a recent post, I'm not an alarmist. My glass is almost always half full. I live in Yaletown, Vancouver. I'm not elderly. I'm not diabetic. My heart is strong. I work a lot. I have a lot of flexibility. If you or someone you know is concerned about being out in public, I'm happy to pick up prescriptions, water, pet food. Just let me know. I'm Realtor Josh Kepke, here with your market update for the month of February that we just had. And see below if you're catching this from the newsletter for the latest stats in your area, or reach out to me directly with a text to 604-313-9805 or phone call, or you can reach me on social media at Josh Kepke. Thanks a lot, and keep your social distance, wash your hands, sanitize, all that good stuff.